this is Jeff Kober, and we welcome you to Disney Insights. With Disney having over 100 years as a company, there have been good times and a few tough times. But relatively speaking, the company has fared well over the long haul. It certainly has grown enormously from its original roots as a small animation studio to one of the biggest media organizations across the globe. It is envied for its growth, but that growth isn't sustainable unless you're growing your employees in a sustainable way. Short-term, corporations can do many things to make a quick turnaround. Infuse capital, if nothing else, show momentary goodwill, and create great marketing campaigns that'll maybe make people notice. But real admiration comes from sustained long-term growth, not from quick overnight deals. And that growth comes from growing your employees. I'm happy to say I'm joined today by Kim and Mac Cantrell, former guests on my podcast, who will share what's happening with organizations that are facing their own growth challenges. We'll talk about those, and we'll talk about something called soft wiring, which is a practical way or approach to working with your employees to engage, motivate, and empower them to grow the organization successfully. I'll share plenty of examples of what this looks like at Disney, and you'll see that these things are things you can do in your organization as well. So join us on Disney Insights as we talk about how to grow your company by growing your employees. This podcast is produced by myself and Performance Journeys, which offers training, development, consultant support to organizations big and small and entrepreneurs new and established. With a wide variety of resources and long time in the trench experience, we offer workshops, online learning, coaching, and more to organizations that want to build their teams, improve organizational excellence, better their leadership, and create customer loyalty. Check us out at performancejourneys.com. And please support us by not only subscribing to this podcast, but offering up a rating, review, or referral to others. Be sure to check out DisneyInsights.com, where we offer key points, photos, videos, links, and more. And also note that our YouTube carries our podcast as well. So please subscribe to our Disney Insights YouTube page, as it will be more a part of our social media strategy moving forward. We welcome any positive thoughts and comments on our YouTube podcast as well. Well, perhaps your organization is trying to make a turnaround. Perhaps you're doing incredible business, but you wonder how to sustain that growth. Today's conversation is about just how to do that and what business-inspired lessons from Disney teach about that. To share in that discussion, I'm pleased to have Kim and Mac Cantrell. They joined me back on episode 253, where we talked about fantastic customer service and leadership at Disney. Today, we'll chat about organizations that are experiencing big growth, but struggle to make that happen. I'll share some lessons and insight from Disney on how to address that growth in a way that is sustainable and engaging to your workforce. So, without further ado, let's chat with Mac and Kim. All right. I am so glad to have Kim and Mac Cantrell back here on the podcast with us today. And just glad that we could talk about what's working and what are the challenges in organizations that you and I are dealing with individually, separately, but have common themes. And so before we get too much further, why don't you, Kim, give just a little introduction to the two of you?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Jeff, I echo your thoughts. We are so glad to be back joining with you. We've really loved over the last year or so the conversations that we've been able to have with you, and trying to stay connected and find ways that our clients can benefit from each other. And so really, Mac and I are leadership coaches and trainers. And simply put, I think that means that we come alongside people to help them be the best version of themselves. And I've really been so fortunate to do this work for the last 11 years. I don't know how it's been 11 years, but some days. And Mac joined me in this journey in 2020. And really, we really can't think of a more rewarding way to spend this part of our life.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. There and some days do feel like 11 years in and of themselves. So I
Absolutely, they
completely
do.
appreciate where you're coming from. Um, Tell us a little bit, if you would, Mac, a little bit about some of the challenges that the clients you're dealing with these days. What are the kinds of things they're facing?
There's two of our clients that really come to mind, and they are both experiencing rapid, tremendous growth. And what I
Mm,
want to say first before I talk about both of them is to say I believe that there's this gap that exists between what people outside the organization, their perspective of it when it gets busy versus what the reality is within the walls of that business for the employees. I often say it's like watching it from the bleachers. Everything looks great, but you're not on the field during game time experiencing what's really going on. And these two clients that we have, I'll say the first one, it is a large profit. It's actually an electrical supplier. Think Walmart of electrical components, and that's what they
hmm
are. They have experienced, I would say, explosive, tremendous growth. Really started in 2020 under the leadership of the new CEO that really brings in leadership, is a cheerleader for that. And so through his leadership, the growth. Let me just give you an example. In just the last 2 years, this is what they've experienced. They're based in South Carolina, but they opened up a 187,000 square foot facility in Virginia. They moved into a new facility in South Carolina that's 247,000 square feet, and they launched a new software program company wide, all in the span of
Wow.
just 2 years. Now, secondly, we work with a healthcare provider, a much smaller organization, a nonprofit, and they have added so many new services, offerings for the people that they serve and that they take care of in the community. And also, they've branched into other geographical areas too. So they've had a lot of growth. And, while these two organizations are very dissimilar, there is one thing they have in common, that rapid growth that they're experiencing. And
Mm.
let's say again from the bleachers, you and I might say, wow, but I'm wondering the people within the organization, they may have a different kind of wow. It- you
I
know, it, they're I would say this is what they're experiencing. Just a few handful. The processes and procedures that go with it, the learning curves, that's a time commitment, right? And then there's going to be more of demand on productivity and efficiency with all of these things coming down the pipe to these folks.
Understood. And what a good problem to have, but it is a problem trying to deal with the busyness of growth and how fast it comes on. And I have experienced that with other organizations and with organizations that just they're continually evolving, and so new managers are brought in, new leaders are brought in. There's a sense of we got to reorganize because it's getting bigger. We got to get everybody to do their job, hold them accountable to what they need to do, and so forth. And how do we go about that, make that happen? Um, if I could offer just a story that is a little reminiscent of this, back in 2000, when Epcot was getting ready, even prior to that, when Epcot was getting ready for its millennial celebration, there was a new vice president, and he came on board. Now, here's the deal: every time you put somebody new on board, the mantra is always going to be make it better, make it bigger, make it happen, change something. And so the individual walked into the land pavilion at Epcot, which, if you haven't been there, it's a big atrium, 2 floors. He's looking down. There was a fountain in the middle. It was kind of white sculpted kind of thing with water that ran down the middle of a food court. And he noticed that that fountain was not working. And so he went over and I approached some of the food and beverage folks who were working nearby, cleaning things up and so forth. He said, I noticed the fountain's not working. And they kind of looked sideways and, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it hasn't been working for days. Well, is that your job to get that fountain to work? And they go, no, no, we're food and beverage. We don't know anything about fountains. Well, whose job is it? Well, go talk to operations. They're the people who seem to be in charge of everything, or they seem to think everybody else is that they're in charge of everything. So he goes over to operations by the attractions. He says, "Hey, I noticed that the fountain is not working over nearby." And they take a look and they go, "Oh yeah, yeah, go figure." He goes, "Well, is that your responsibility to deal with the fountain when it's not working?" And they said, "No, food and beverage must have sent you over. They think we're in charge of everything, but we're not." And he goes, "Well, who is in charge of getting the fountain to work?" He goes, "Well, maintenance. If it's broken, then you should go talk to maintenance." "Well, where's maintenance?" "Well, you see that small door over there? Go through that door, go down the hallway, make a right, make another right, go in the door, ring the bell. Somebody from maintenance will come and talk to you." And so he goes through the door, goes down the hallway, makes a right, goes in the room, rings the bell. Maintenance worker, older gentleman, didn't know who he was, comes in. "How can I help you?" He goes, "I noticed the fountain outside's not working." "Oh, really? Oh my goodness. If it's not working, it needs to be fixed." "Great. If you could get it fixed, that would be fantastic." "Oh yeah, no problem at all. What I need you to do is sign these documents, these forms, and make sure that not only your signature is on it, but your boss's signature is on it as well." Again, not knowing who he's talking to, the guy who's over all of Epcot. Any rate, he's looking at this is not working. We got silos. We got, people doing their own thing, and we got all this stuff going on. All this stuff is happening. We got to change it. And so he made a big organizational change. He created intact groups where under, say, the land or the seas, you would have food and beverage and operations and maintenance and revenue and retail and all those people. And there'd be one for Spaceship Earth, and there'd be another for Mexico, China, and there'd be another, all these different groups. And he spent the better part of a year reorganizing and restructuring and getting people. And some people came in, some people left, and new jobs, lots of meetings and so forth. And at the end of that effort, guess what happened? The fountain was still not working. So this is what happens. We think that in order to address the fact that we're getting bigger or that we've got more things to do and so forth, that we need to restructure. And I would suggest that rather than restructuring, we think about how we could get everybody on board to the same concept, to the same mission, and to think that that even if you reorganize, you're not going to replace accountability. Accountability still needs to occur. I don't know. That story, Kim, when you think about that, what are some thoughts that comes to your mind?
Well, I think first and foremost, the silos. We hear that term. We hear our clients talk about that in so many of the organizations that we work in. And I think that the silos are a symptom of the busyness.
Mm,
When growth is happening, uh, uh, teams are moving really fast, right? Just to try to keep up with the growth. When we think about organizations we're working in that are growing, they're often growing faster than they can add people to do the extra work. And so the people that are there, right, they default into this isolation mode. I feel like it's as if they start to walk around with blinders on. They're all
mm,
about my job, my
mm-hmm,
team. It's
mm-hmm.
like I've got to get it done because there's not enough hours in the day. And we know that, right? Busyness, right? It is really a huge buzzword. I mean, I wonder, Jeff, if you think about how many people in a week that you interact with and you ask them the question, "Hey, how's it going?" You meet them, and what do they say? "Oh, it's
Right.
just busy."
Or
That's right.
moreover, how many times somebody comes back to me and says, "I'm sorry, I didn't get back to you. I was busy." Like,
Busy.
oh, you must be the first person. I've never seen anybody else who was busy. The
Right,
fact is,
right,
we're all
right.
busy. We all have a ton of stuff to do on our plate. In fact, I talk about a plate of pasta. And I talk about the idea that you've got this big plate of pasta. And what do people do? They throw more pasta on your plate and more pasta and more pasta. Eventually, what happens is stuff falls off your plate. And this happens for big growing organizations. They're trying to do it all, but stuff starts falling through the cracks. And stuff and stuff starts to happen. And so what you have to do is stop focusing on the pasta and start focusing on the plate. The things that matter that are going to create the organizational improvement and success that you need to achieve. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that breaking down those silos isn't about adding more structure. Right? It's really about figuring out how to slow down just enough to give people clarity, to create expectations, clear expectations, shared priorities, all those things that lead to accountability. And what we know is that people need to understand clearly what is expected of them if they're going to perform at their best.
I completely agree. And there's a concept I use to making this happen, to creating that organizational excellence. It's the the thought of soft wiring instead of hard wiring. Hard wiring is when you create those that hierarchical decision making that everything comes down from the top. It's about organizational structure. It's about retrofitting stop gaps. It's about policies and procedures. Something not working, we need another policy and procedure in place. It's about um, remove and replace and reprimand and those kinds of elements. You either do it or die kind of thing. Softwire suggests a different philosophy, especially when it comes to accountability. And when I think of accountability, I think about it in terms of three things. Three, because accountability is a big word and it's not always a friendly word to people because it sounds like, okay, this is the way I'm going to get my hand slapped. In truth, what we're trying to do is softwire in a positive framework for accountability. And I think about it in terms of three things. First, set clear expectations. Second, provide support and feedback. And third, make performance matter. Now, to kind of go through each of those, let me just mention a couple of things. First off, as I mentioned when I talked about focus on the plate, you need to have a very clear vision and set of standards as to what your organization is, a true north that everybody's pointed in the direction of. And you want to build a framework. You don't want to build a rule book. You know, the head of Pixar once said, be afraid of making too many rules. It really ends up hurting the 99% when in truth it was the behavior of a 1%. We're not looking about creating more rules. We're looking about a framework by which people can achieve excellence within about a set of as inside a structure, and that structure are the values, the things we value as an organization. I have no problem having a conversation with somebody who says, well, I made this decision based on our values because we said we wanted to be honest, or we said we wanted to be more efficient, or we said we wanted to be more courteous. That's why I did that. If somebody says that, they're working within that framework, and I can appreciate and achieve that. And then we want, in terms of setting clear expectations, to hire, orient, and onboard people to that expectation. Everything along the path of their experience should be along what we expect, those that mission and values. I don't know if you've seen that play out, Mac, or if that's you've seen how that might work with some groups you've worked with.
Sure. I will say that that concept of soft versus hard wiring was new to me. But once you shared it and I read what you have written about it, it's a great illustration of different forms of leadership. And I think about it in terms of hard wiring, of that being that transactional leadership where you're
Mm,
getting results through compliance, those
mm,
processes, procedures, policies, and rules, as you said, versus soft wiring being really transformational leadership. And that's getting results by getting people to commit, by creating a culture of autonomy, which empowers people. And I read something just yesterday about culture, which I thought was an interesting way to look at it. Too many companies treat culture as a marketing campaign. It's not that. It is a change of how you lead people. and it has to be leading a lot different. And so I love the concept of it, and thank you again for bringing that new concept to us and sharing that with us.
Well, culture is how you feel on a Sunday night when you have to think about going into work the next morning. Uh, and and if you don't have, again, that kind of supportive software environment, talk about setting clear expectations. Disney has a mission. We create happiness. They have standards, safety, courtesy, inclusion, show efficiency. Then then I think the heavy lifting comes. It's providing support and feedback to your employees. You need to you need to work alongside your people, collectively and individually. You need to communicate with them 360, both formally and informally. Walt had a first name basis to his organization. Everybody called him, he asked, insisted that everybody call him Walt. Why did he insist on that? He had organizational charts. But what he wanted people to feel free to do was to talk to him at any time and not feel like they had to go up the ladder to do it. He also felt like he didn't have to go down the ladder to talk to anybody. So he wanted a more, don't mistake your communication process with your organizational process. You want to be able to you want to be able to communicate freely. You want to train and develop people. Disney doesn't have a um, a training group. They have a corporate university. In fact, they were one of the first to create a corporate university. They saw that it's not about training, it's about developing people. You know, if what if we and some people say, what if we spend all this money and time training people and then they just up and leave us and go work for someplace else? Well, the answer to that is, what if you don't train and develop these people and they stick around? And that's the scary part in organizations. So you want to provide support and feedback, work alongside people, communicate, and then you want to make performance matter. And at Disney, you tie the recognition to what your mission and values are. If you live up to what you say you represent, then we reward that. And we're going to reward in formal ways, and we're going to reward in informal ways. And by the way, we're going to train in formal and informal ways and communicate in formal and informal ways. And then we're going to help people find internal satisfaction in what they do. And I think not only Disney has succeeded in doing this, but many other great organizations in the public, private, nonprofit succeed in creating that culture because they set clear expectations, they provide support and feedback, and they make performance matter in a soft wiring way that really engages people, empowers people, brings passion to people, really kind of brings that all together. Thoughts, comments, um, with your experience?
But what I was thinking when you were sharing that is how many clients we've had over the last 3 or 4 years that we're really just struggling with even the word accountability.
Mm,
Right? As so many things changed around 2020, 2021 that shifted
hmm
for clients in how they ran their businesses, how they led people. And so it's that place, I think, of when there has been no accountability, then it is painful, I think, for clients, for leaders and organizations to get back to the place. I mean, we know that employees really excel when there is clear accountability. But when there is none, then we're living in a world where the behaviors that you tolerate have become acceptable.
Oh yeah, that's a huge problem. I did a program one time with the Naval Audit Group in DC, and it was a program on trust, day long program with this one group. But this other guy in the building said, "Hey, I heard you doing a program on trust. Could you come and talk to me about something during lunch?" And so I said, yeah, absolutely. So during my lunch hour, I came over and talked to him. He said, we are looking at the idea. This was back in 2013, I think, way back, way back. We're looking at people working from home. And we're not sure how we can do this. We're thinking of these tools that are in place, maybe something that uh, indicates whether they've been at their keyboard. Um, or left their keyboard more than 5 minutes, or maybe something that determines how much activity is on their keyboard, or how do we make sure that they're actually working on work when they're at when they're at home? And I said, well, is this a problem of trusting people to in their work uh, here at work? He goes, "Oh yeah, oh yeah. You could walk through this place at 2 in the afternoon and find people asleep in their cubicles and not doing anything." I go, "Well, you don't have a working from home issue. You have a trust issue. If you haven't created the accountability and trust within they're working there, there's nothing that's going to succeed when you get back home." When Bob Iger returned to being CEO, it was toward the end of that COVID period. And the first thing he noticed that nobody was in the office. Everybody was home. In fact, I remember the same time the Team Disney building here in Orlando, there must have been like 40 cars where before there were 300 every day. It was just, you know, and no, I'm not putting down working from home. There is a time and a place, and that works. That's not what this conversation is. It's about creating a culture that you can trust your people and that you can hold them accountable and get the results you want, no matter where they're working at any given time, whether it's home, whether it's in the office, whether it's with the client. What do we do? What are the systems we build to create that accountability? And if you're going to hardwire it, if you're going to have them clock in every, 4.5 seconds, it's not going to work. But if you could create or soft wiring systems that really build for engaging people and making them more passionate and more empowered, I think you're going to be a lot more successful. Otherwise, I just can't see how you're going to continue the growth. You can only manage things so long. You've got to trust and empower, and you've got to build leaders who can do the same. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you don't have that accountability system and that soft wired culture in place, then it really makes quick growth. I think it's just a recipe for chaos.
yeah, it is. It is. You may see growth in the short term, but you will not sustain it in the long term. And in fact, the data we have seen, and it does not matter, big or small, public, private, nonprofit, if you do not have an engaged workforce, you will not sustain your growth long term. And so you've got to do the things to engage and support and do that. And that is an accountability system, but it's one in which you work with people to help them. And if people say, yeah, but I don't have enough time. I've got so many employees. Well, then build other leaders to help support you in engaging and empowering others. That's your job as a leader, is not to tell people what to do. It is to build the leadership capacity in other individuals so they too can lead. That is your job ultimately as a leader. So let me just offer some key points here. First, do I find myself, and this is what I usually call my souvenirs, free souvenirs for anybody listening. Do I find myself or organization growing faster and busier? If so, how is this impacting the quality of our products and services? Any thoughts on that?
When I hear you say that, it makes me think, that when there's fast growth, it always creates complexity. But that complexity doesn't have to turn into chaos. I think this key is don't confuse structure with accountability. Right? We have to ask ourselves
Love
these
it.
questions, these two questions you've said, and then, who owns this? Who follows through? Because like that clarity of ownership is really the simplest way to keep things from falling through the cracks.
I love that. So, yeah, the second question that I would ask then is how can I create greater accountability that truly supports my team as we grow exponentially and kind of build on that. And then the
Well, I
third
could.
point, yeah, please, Matt, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I could ramble off a list on that, but four points, and it all falls under lead by example first and foremost.
Hmm.
And lead by example by encouraging honest and timely feedback, encourage peer-to-peer accountability so everything doesn't have to go to the manager, the leader, and empower by delegating responsibilities rather than micromanaging people, and then focus on people's strengths and not their weaknesses.
Yeah, we can't spend, you can harp all day on what people are doing wrong, but if you can put a little bit more emphasis on the building the strengths, wow, you see people start to soar. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we use a lot of Gallup data where we use the Clifton Strengths Assessment, right? And Gallup tells us that your greatest opportunity for growth is working in your strengths.
Love that. Love that. And then the third thought I have is how can I better softwire my culture so as to better support the kind of growth we hope to achieve? Um,
Yeah,
again, you can hardwire or softwire, and there is a time and place for hardwire. There is a time and place where, hey, somebody isn't going with, isn't adhering to the standards and the mission and isn't working effectively with others. Maybe it's time to have a conversation about where they might better fit elsewhere, outside the organization. There might be that time, but I'd rather spend more time trying to get people on board. Yeah, Mac.
For any listeners that are unfamiliar with that concept, like I was, you might hear that software at first and think, "Oh, this is warm and fuzzy." Read into it, and it's not so much, right? It's not just rainbows and unicorns. I mean, there's some really tough stuff to it, I guess.
Now there are some really powerful, and it still takes a lot of work to softwire. It isn't just say, okay, just do your own thing and you'll work it out, and let's all hold hands and sing kumbaya. That's not what this is all about. This is about really critical thinking and empowering people to be engaged in that, in really creating answers that move us all in the same direction, in that true north that we're trying to look for. So, at any rate, it's all exciting stuff. I think this is why we love what we do. We just love working with individuals, and for me, I bring in these Disney stories because I think people see that, hey, you know, it an organization like this, a Mickey Mouse organization like this can do it. Can't I do it too? Why? So I think that's your feeling too in terms of working with other organizations.
yeah, absolutely. Big or small, we always say this when we go into organizations, meeting with new clients, we ask what their pain points are. They're going to generally be the same 3 out of 5 pain points, right? It doesn't matter the size of your organization,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because every organization is made up of people,
Mm.
and in the end, it's made up of imperfect people.
Yeah, yeah. You got
I
to
have
give people
one,
grace to grow and
That's
develop
right.
and be
That's
what
right.
they need to
right.
be. Mac.
Just a comment, and this could be a whole nother podcast, so I'll just touch on this. We talked a lot about accountability. For accountability to be effective, there must be consequences in place. And take a moment if you want to Google consequences and look at images. None of them are good, and that's our perception of consequences, right? It's not. There are good, great consequences, but there are some that maybe not so much, depending on the performance.
Right.
But we talk to people and we say, "Do you have accountability in place?" And it's, yeah. What does that look like? Well, we talk to them. We talk to them and bring to their attention, well, what's tied to that? Because if there's not consequences, you don't have accountability.
There's a story shared the other day of a photographer at Disneyland who had worked many, 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 many years at Main Street taking photos, and he was given the Disney Legacy Award, which is a lifetime achievement award. And you could see there were so many fellow cast members and guests who had gotten to know him, who were cheering him on and so thrilled. That's the consequence. That's the other end of the stick you will pick up if you are doing the right things, if you are showing, if you are living the values and mission of your organization and moving in the right direction. And that's
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be those images you talked about on Google,
Right.
Mac. It doesn't have to
Right.
be that way. It could be a lot
No.
more the other. So hey, uh, in in closing, tell us where we can connect with both of you for those who are looking to have more conversations with you about their work?
Awesome. Yeah. We can find us. Our website is two, and that's the number two, toimpactlife.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Those are our three socials, and we're not going outside of those.
I recommend the LinkedIn especially because you guys do a great job of going on there every few days and putting in a post that just has a couple of really good nuggets for people
Yeah,
to
we
think
really are
about.
just we really just want to provide people something that helps them to grow. So it's a small nugget. Yeah.
Our tagline is developing people is our passion. And
Yeah.
that's our reward in life.
You guys, you live that really well. So I also
Thank
put
you.
in a link to our previous podcast, and I'll put in a link to my previous podcast with your son,
Nice.
Alec, that
Yes.
we had done not too long ago, a couple of months ago. So that was a
Thank you
lot
for
of
doing
fun.
that. He really enjoyed that.
He's also a podcaster and doing his own thing too, and it's a lot of fun. So
Not too
hey,
far from you, actually.
Yeah.
hey, thanks for both of you for taking the time today.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Again, my thanks to Mac and Kim for joining us and having this dialogue about what's really happening in the trench and what people are experiencing and how these ideas fit those needs. Let me expand on some ways that Disney is committed to growing their company by growing their cast. We talked earlier about the idea of setting clear expectations, providing developmental support, and making performance matter. Let's go through each of those with a couple of examples here. Setting clear expectations. If you want your people, your employees, to have the right expectations, why don't you hire the people who come in already with those expectations? Part of what attracts the right fit people to Disney are people who are attracted to what is right about Disney. This example is exemplified in the story of Brittany Wiley, a cast member who more than 20 years ago came to Walt Disney World for the first time with her family. While they're at Epcot visiting the seas with Nemo and friends, she fell in love with animals. That sparked a dream in her to one day work with animals at Disney. She says, quote, "The seas with Nemo and friends was my favorite part of our Disney trip because of all of the animals. It was awe-inspiring for 4-year-old me to see the different types of aquariums and marine life," Brittany said. "That attraction is what helped build my love for animals and eventually my love for wanting to do that as a career." And where better to accomplish your dreams than the place where they first began, especially since Brittany was a big Disney fan. She says, "Growing up and coming to the parks, I was obsessed with Disney. As I got older, I learned so much about conservation work that Disney does all over the world. Knowing how much Disney gives back made me want to work at the parks even more. In truth, Disney takes action every day to protect animals, connect communities to nature, and support a healthier planet. You know, that's why you pay that dollar to get that little button when you go to the store or to the register at Disney's Animal Kingdom. I mean, after all, there are about 5,000 animals who call Disney World their home. But it takes a talented team of vets, nutritionists, animal keepers, educators, and so much more who care for these animals and share their stories with guests." And by the way, I've actually worked with a number of zoos all over the country. One of the realities of Disney's Animal Kingdom, it is the great training place for so many of these fantastic individuals who then go out into other zoos later on and work and so forth. Right now, Brittany is an animal keeper. She takes care of animals at Animal Kingdom, feeding them, providing them enrichment items and experiences, cleaning their habitats, training them more. For her, it's a dream come true. She says, "I get to do what I love every single day. This was a very big dream of mine, and to be able to fulfill that, work for Disney and work with these animals is truly the culmination of my life." Now, so really quick, if you want to set clear expectations, be that company that shines the light on the kind of people you want to come in and work at that company. And this is a very simple example of that. And that's how Disney is able to attract people like Brittany to come in and work at Disney. The message here is that if you want the best of the best, come across that way to others, set those expectations high, be the best, and you will attract the best. And when you are trying to move in a growth model, that's hugely important. The second is providing developmental support. I mentioned that Disney doesn't have a training department. It has a Disney University. Let's talk about the difference between those two and between a corporate university and a traditional university. Through SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Management, who actually has published both editions of our book, Lead with Your Customer, Mark Allen, professor at Pepperdine, shares these two examples. And again, this is all playing into how you think about supporting and developing your employees. First off, a corporate university and training department. What's the difference? A training department is tactical or operational, whereas a corporate university is positioned at a strategic level. A good training program helps you to do your job better. A corporate university helps the organization achieve its mission. Then Allen goes on to say, what's the difference between a corporate university and a traditional university? Traditional universities conduct scientific research and grant degrees in a variety of disciplines. Corporate universities focus primarily, though not exclusively, on on-the-job skills, company-specific proprietary knowledge and branding, and certification. At a corporate university, you are focusing on learning that will benefit the organization, not just the individual. So again, if you want to grow the organization, you're going to have to grow your own employees. Disney was one of the first corporate universities in America. And before it called itself that, it was training artists decades early when they were trying to create its first full-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And they also believe in a traditional university experience. And through the Disney Aspire program, it has allowed thousands of employees to make college something they could reach for themselves. And just actually, if you're not familiar with the Disney Aspire program, let me just tell you a little bit about it. It's an educational investment and career development program for eligible hourly, full-time, and part-time employees and cast members across the country. There are 92,500 eligible employees. Tuition is paid upfront at 10 plus in-network learning providers. There's all sorts of college degree options, not just the ones attached to, say, customer service or restaurant management, but across a wide variety. Because honestly, there are thousands of different kinds of job categories across Disney. You can't just focus on a few. And as a result of it, there is like 9.8 thousand active students, most of them 6.8 at Walt Disney World. There are 5.9 thousand current graduates. 4,200 plus have come from Walt Disney World, 1,400 plus from Disneyland. And I think this is the important thing to really note here. 4,700 of these individuals, students and graduates, have been internally promoted thus far across the Walt Disney Company. How are you going to promote growth sustainably if you don't have people who are getting the learning and the development they need in order to be successful? So that's what we mean by providing developmental support. And the third thing we talked about was making performance matter. I mentioned in my conversation with Mac and Kim, a photographer recently recognized with the Disney Legend Award. That individual is Willie Jackson. And let me just share a little bit about Willie, that he has won the Disney Legacy Award. Now, this is a way that we acknowledge cast, crew, and Walt Disney Imagineers worldwide. And it's based on three qualities: dream, create, and inspire. And Willie is one of a rare group of people who were selected for the Legacy Award this year, with fewer than 1% of cast members across Disney experiences chosen. It's a very big compliment. Now, what's interesting is that Willie recently was named the most complimented cast member at Walt Disney World. This is a photographer, by the way, working at Disney Hollywood Studios. I may have said Magic Kingdom, but he's at studios, where he officially hit a milestone moment with more than 1,000 mobile cast compliments from guests. Now, if you're not aware, there is an electronic vehicle in the Disney Parks apps that allow you to send cast compliments to others. He has received there's been like about 1.4 million cast compliments sent to all the cast members, but 1,000 of these have actually gone to Willie alone. And it's not the only thing they have. They have Recognize Now. It's a worldwide digital platform for Disney employees that enables them to send notes of appreciation, recognition, and gratitude quickly and easily to one another. And then there's also Celebrate Now, a similar platform which allows people to celebrate their life's most important moments, such as birthdays or holidays or anniversaries or so forth. And they offer an array of e-cards and so forth. Further, and again, then there's the cast compliment feature in the My Disney Experience and Disneyland Resort mobile apps. So by putting these systems in place, you have now soft-wired ways for people to see that their performance matters because they're being recognized by customers, they're being recognized by their fellow employees, they're being celebrated by each other. That's what's at the heart of making performance matter. And these three things together, making performance matter, providing developmental support, setting clear expectations, all these things tier up to creating an organization, to growing an organization that will allow you to grow. Sonia Coleman, the Chief Human Resources Officer at Walt Disney Company, said, quote, "At Disney, we're committed to fostering a welcoming and empowering environment rooted in our shared values, successes, and belief in the power of storytelling. Our employees are at the heart of everything we do, and we thrive together to make it the best place in the world to work." I think Walt said it himself when he said, quote, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." In short, if you want to grow your organization and do it in a sustainable way, be accountable to growing your employees in a sustainable way. Well, that does it for this podcast. We are so glad you could join us. And again, so thankful for Mac and Kim. And again, if you go to the show notes page, I have the link to Alec's podcast, their son, Alec, who has a podcast and who interviewed me recently. So take a note of that if you have a chance. If you are looking for more resources like this, I mentioned my book, Through SHRM, Lead with Your Customer, that looks into not just Disney, but over 100 different organizations and what they do to create excellence within their organization through their employees and through their customers. Lead with Your Customer. I also have several Disney focus books, Disney Leadership and You, The Wonderful World of Customer Service at Disney, and a century of powerful Disney insights from the Walt and Roy Disney years. So check that out. Their links are on the show notes, and you can also find them at DisneyInsights.com. And if you're looking to take this conversation to a next place, reach out to Kim, reach out to Mac, reach out to myself. This podcast and all of them are provided by Performance Journeys, which celebrates more than 20 years as a training and development group, bringing best in business ideas through books, keynotes, workshops, seminars, and online tools that help you take your organization to the next level. So if you're looking for a keynote speaker at your next conference, we can share some really great inspiring stories, whether they're from Disney or other organizations. We'll talk about that, what you want, but really create those kinds of stories that are built around solutions that we have created in the trench. If you need consulting, happy to work with you. Give me a call. Let's talk about what's working, what's not working. I've worked for decades across the public, private, and nonprofit arena. And then if you need support, we've got classroom workshops, online resources around customer service, leadership development, employee engagement, the kinds of topics we talked about today. Contact us and let us know how we can help at performancejourneys.com. Thanks for joining us for this podcast. Know that as in the title of Performance Journeys, it's as much about the journey as it is about performance. Find the second star to the right and keep going straight on till you reach it. Follow the compass of your heart and know with a smile and a song, a little faith, effort, and pixie dust, your dreams can come true. After all, if we can dream it, we can do it. Until next time, bright suns, we'll see you real soon.